Good evening, everyone. Welcome into our Home Field Credit Union Studio B as we present this edition of the Milford Informer. I am your host, Tim Coet. This is our final Informer episode of 2018. It's been another busy and exciting year here around the Milford community and right here at Milford TV. So as we wrap things up for 2018, we've got a couple of news and sports items for you, and we'll also share with you some holiday highlights courtesy of the Claflin Hill Symphony and the GMCC. For one last time this year, let's take a look at everything we have coming up in our top stories rundown. Tonight we have two more installments of our My Milford TV Stories series featuring longtime Milford TV members Bryant, Hopkins and Malcolm Zale. Also tonight we have a pair of highlights to share from Milford boys basketball as they battle Davenport rival Sharon and Kelly Rex foe King Philip. And later on, we'll close out the show with excerpts from a pair of holiday concerts from the GMCC and the Claflin Hill Symphony. Though the window to file comments to the FCC has now closed, and we continue to wait for the ultimate outcome of possible regulation changes, we have a few more of our My Milford TV stories to share with you to close out the year. Tonight we share the stories of two of our longtime members, Bryant Hopkins and Malcolm Zale.
Hi, my name is Bryant Hopkins, and this is My Milford TV story. One of my friends here in town, his house burned down one spring morning, and I wanted to do something for him. And decided that a fundraiser would be a good thing to do. Now, we had sponsored some through Milford Cub Scouts and a few other places, so I had some idea of what was needed. So I was able to contact Ron Osher, who's been a Milford institution for years as the DJ of many of the school events. And he put me in contact with Ray Osher. And we put together a fundraiser with a fundraising concert right down at Town Park. And we had a very good turnout, and lots of people came along, and we did all right with the fundraising. And Ron and Ray were talking. They said that, well, they were having trouble getting local venues for the bands that they knew and they promoted and were in to play, because there are just fewer of them now. So I got to thinking that I should find some way to close the gap a bit. And so I got to meet you and all the other terrific folks here at Milford TV. By the following October, we started our first show, Milford Performs, and I really, really enjoyed it. I mean, it's rare that a father and a teenage daughter can do something together, but I was able to do this with my daughter, Michaela, and that was the biggest thing for me, is that this was a project, a program that the two of us could put together. She handled a lot of the technical stuff. She took care of the crew. She was she always told me where I was going wrong. Many times she would tell me where I was going wrong. And we put it together for 5 years. It was a really good thing for us to do together. And that was, for me, the best thing about the show. I had been in performing arts for a long time in various parts. I'd been out of it for a number of years, but I was a musician and an actor in various roles over the years, and I'd never done anything on television. At the time I was involved with the Milford Performing Arts Center, I thought that this would be a way to expand my involvement with them to promote their brand, as well as other parts of the performing arts community here in Milford and the Milford area. So and it just seemed fascinating to me that we would have access to all of this technology just for the asking. I recently changed jobs, and through the magic of television, which is a phrase that my daughter banned me from saying on the show because I said it so much, I had learned to do interviews, to be the interviewer. I had never really done that on a consistent basis before, but I found myself prepping. Whenever a new act came in, I had to find out what they were all about, who they were, what their interest was, how could I best help them to promote their brand, their own music. Because everyone that came in to see and be part of this show was a real musician. They may have various levels of competency. Good musician, good dancer, good actor, even some improv comedians. But every one of them was committed to what they were doing. And I really enjoyed learning how to interview with people who knew what they were doing. So surprisingly, I may not be out there, recording the Patriots games on Sunday, but the fact that I could learn to talk to people on an interview basis really helped to strengthen my interviewing skills when I went out to find new work. So that was not something I had anticipated, but it's something I found out about myself later on. One of the things that our society does not have in great abundance is community. There are communities, and when I was growing up, communities were smaller. Now they're bigger. Now some of them have just flown away. It's really surprising to me that anyone would not view this cable access TV as what it is, a community-based, values-based media source for the people who live in our town, in all the other towns that have cable access television. The government programs, the local school programs, programs like Milford Performs, all the other types of programs, life stories, anything. It just surprises me that someone in a bureaucratic capacity would view this as something to be thrown away. Our society doesn't have the kinds of community links that we used to, but this is part of what cable TV can contribute, is to help lengthen the reach of our communities. A lot of people watched our show on YouTube, on their phones when they were out of town. They were reaching back to Milford. And that's one of the great things about cable access television, is that it is local in a time where local is changing.
Hi, my name is Malcolm, and this is my Milford TV story. I was 12 years old, and my dad was a featured musician on Talk Show with RJ Sheedy. And at the end of the show, I went up to Tyler Nastry and said, "How do I start doing this?" And he said, "Talk to RJ." And I went over to RJ and I said, "You're doing a bad job." And he said, "You should come help." I said, "No." And he said, "Why not?" And I said, "Okay." And then I started coming in. And now, that was 5 years ago. I've loved every second since. The thing I was probably most interested to get my hands on Milford TV was cameras themselves. I like cameras. I like how they work. I liked finding out how their insides work. I actually took apart one that I bought because I thought it was fun. I would have to say my most memorable experience from Milford TV would have to be going into New Hampshire with Joseph Marcello and a bunch of other people that we got together to film a short film called The Eyes Above Paradise. That was so much fun because I've gotten to use parts of that to show to colleges and make my reel better, and it was a really great learning experience, and it was very hands-on and very involved for a confined period of time. It was a very unique experience. My time at Milford TV has prepared me, I feel like, incredibly aptly for what I'm about to go pursue in college in film and film studies. I feel like I have a competitive edge over most of the people I'm going to be peers with, and I cannot wait to see if I'm right or not. I feel like because of my experiences at Milford TV, I have learned to approach situations with a more calculating manner of thinking and more of how do we solve this problem as opposed to so much emotion in my lines of thinking. I feel like that's helped me not only in school and Milford TV, but also in life, how I pursue interactions with other people, relationships. The skills that I've learned here have been invaluable, not just in production itself, but also in life skills, work ethic, time management, literally everything that's part of who I am, I have learned in some way from the studio. I feel like because of my experiences at Milford TV, I have learned to approach situations with a more calculating manner of thinking and more of how do we solve this problem as opposed to so much emotion in my lines of thinking. I feel like that's helped me not only in school and Milford TV, but also in life, how I pursue interactions with other people, relationships. The skills that I've learned here have been invaluable, not just in production itself, but also in life skills, work ethic, time management, literally everything that's part of who I am, I have learned in some way from the studio. The staff and community that surrounds Milford TV is paramount. I have come here more times than I can count when I don't need to be filming or editing something and just need someone to be able to talk to. The community that surrounds this organization is one of the most accepting and rewarding that I have ever found and chosen to be a part of. I could not encourage anyone enough to come down to Milford TV, even if you don't want to produce anything, even if you just are looking for something fun to do for a little while. If you don't know anything about Milford TV and you live in the Milford area, I would suggest that you come down to 291 East Main Street. If you are in the Milford regional area and you've never been to or heard of Milford TV, I cannot recommend enough that you come down to 136 East Main Street. If you have never been to Milford TV and you live in Milford, I cannot recommend enough that you come down to 138 East Main Street. Thank you.
That was so good. South Main Street, though.
138 South Main Street.
You have 3 numbers.
138, Suite 6. Yes.
The season did not get off to the best of starts for the Scarlet Hawks boys basketball team. After suffering 2 tough losses out of the gates, Milford began a lengthy homestand back on December 14th, and the team was hoping that that home court advantage would be just what they needed to turn things around. After struggling to generate consistent offense in their first 2 games of the season, the Milford boys were hoping that the energy of the Friday night crowd in their home gym would inspire better results as they prepared to take on their first Davenport Division opponent in the Sharon Eagles. Milford would whiff on a couple of chances to get on the scoreboard first in the opening minutes, and eventually Sharon would use a nice pass from Andrew Burton to find Cameron Baker alone under the basket, and he would collect the game's first points. A little over a minute later, the Hawks would pick up the pace, and Brendan Saylor would find fellow captain Brendan White with a good bounce pass, and White would weave around a defender to get to the hoop and tie the score. That basket would get the senior captain going as the first quarter went on. Past the midway point in the period, White would use his speed up the floor again, but would miss on the layup. After Dom Schofield kept the play alive eventually, the ball would end up back in White's hands, and this time he would get the finish. After Sharon fought back to tie the score, Milford would turn to White for the answer yet again, and this time the senior would knock down the corner 3 to give himself 8 points in the opening quarter and give the Hawks a 3-point lead. Danny Corsini would grab another Milford bucket to open the second quarter, but then Sharon would start to fight back. Here it's Aiden Kane who's able to hang on after the scrum with Colby Perez, then watch as every Eagles player on the floor touches the basketball before it ends up back in the hands of Kane, who drains the open 3 to cut it to a 2-point game. On their next possession, this time it's Sharon captain Alex Kaufman who passes up the 3 and instead drives hard inside and gets 2, and that would allow Sharon to tie the score at 16. Milford would put an end to Sharon's momentum on their next possession as they would once again feed White in that far corner, and Brendan would produce his second 3 of the half. On their next possession, the Eagles would give Kane another look from 3, but this time the shot would be offline. White would grab the rebound, and there would be no stopping him as he would sail coast to coast before dropping in the layup to give himself 5 consecutive points. The Hawks would continue to hover around that 5-point lead through much of the quarter, but a late layup for Alex Kaufman would cap off the first half and send the teams to the locker rooms with Milford up by just 3. After being unable to gain separation on the scoreboard throughout the first half, Milford would make some noticeable adjustments once the third quarter got started. Getting into some foul trouble. Now the ricochet out to Brendan Saylor, who knocks down his second 3-pointer of the game. Brendan White now swarmed. It leaves Colby Perez wide open from the far side, and he knocks down the 3. Here's Saylor now, sees the lane to the basket, takes it. And how about 5 very quick points for Brendan Saylor out of the gates. Shot clock running down. Darling gets a tough feed, now leaves it for White. And Brendan White gets his first points of the third quarter. Up to 15 for the game and well on his way to another 20-plus point effort against Sharon. And now there's Jordan Darling picking off the pass. White in transition gets the bucket, and that forces the Sharon timeout. The Hawks would explode out of the gates in the third quarter, using a 12-0 run to turn a one-possession game into a 15-point lead. Sharon would start to feed their big man Caleb Gale as they tried to claw their way back into the game. Gale would string together 4 points as part of a 7-0 Eagles run that cut the deficit back down to single digits. After White brought an end to that run with a bucket, watch him here as he pulls off the steal at midcourt and then dishes off to Brendan Saylor, who finishes at the rim to immediately put the lead back up to 12. The Hawks would enjoy their best offensive quarter of the season, scoring 24 points, and they would carry a 52-39 lead into the fourth quarter. Sharon would try to stay within striking distance in that fourth quarter, getting a 3 from Aiden Kane to bring the Milford lead down to 11, but Milford would stay consistent right down to the final buzzer. Backed by a 30-point performance by Brendan White, Milford would earn their first victory of the season as they would take down the Sharon Eagles by a final score of 66-51. With a win under their belts, the Scarlet Hawks were right back on their home floor on Tuesday, hoping they could start to build their first winning streak of the year as they played host to the Kelly Rex Division King Philip Warriors. KP lost some key contributors to graduation, but they still bring experience to the floor with an all-upperclassmen roster. KP would use that experience to keep the game close through the early minutes of the first quarter. In the opening minute, Bruce Santillas gets surprised by the pass inside, but he's able to recover in time to dish it back out to junior Alex Fritz, who hits a long 3 to open up the scoring. After Milford was able to take a brief lead, KP would answer back with some good play down low. It's Santillas who's able to outwork Milford for the rebound, and he ends up with the bucket to tie the score at 5-all. On their next possession, the Warriors would try to work it inside again, but this time Milford is able to force the turnover, and then it's Brendan White finding Brendan Saylor in transition, and Saylor would collect the bucket. A few minutes later, the Hawks would capitalize on another steal, and this time it's Colby Perez who gets ahead of the defense, and he puts in the uncontested layup. Perez would really heat up as the quarter moved along. Here's Perez now aggressive. Off-balance shot, it's good, and the foul.
Nice cut and move to the inside, spin shot. Unbelievable.
Trying to get the bank off the glass, but does get his own rebound, and there is Colby Perez with the jump shot. Saylor for Darling had a little space. Now Perez sees that lane close in, releases the shot. Nice touch for Colby Perez.
Perez do some great work inside tonight.
Colby Perez would lead the Milford attack through the first 8 minutes, scoring 8 points as the Hawks built up a 10-point lead on the Warriors. From there, it was a player off the Hawks bench that would step into the spotlight as the game entered into the second quarter.
Nice crossover by White there, and the finish.
Corsini. And ultimately, the Hawks come away with possession. Corsini now will release the 3, and so atones for the foul. Saylor now finds Corsini cutting to the basket. Danny Corsini now up to 7 points.
Great sequence there. What a feed and a better finish.
All total, Danny Corsini would drop in 9 of Milford's 22 second quarter points. Milford would see 7 different players find their way onto the score sheet in the first half as they would take a commanding 23-point lead at the break. The good times just kept on rolling for Milford into the second half. Brendan White would grab the first 2 buckets of the third quarter, quickly bringing his total for the game up to 14. On the other side, King Philip just could not find any luck on offense. This play midway through the third quarter said it all. Andrew McKinney gets the steal and takes the ball ahead all alone, but he is unable to convert the layup. Unfortunately for KP, the frustration would only get worse from there as Milford continued to pour it on. And now Saylor all the way to the bucket and gets a couple of very friendly bounces.
He's quietly had a nice little game and good impact overall from the KP side of things.
Santillas loses his dribble. Milford finds Perez all the way up the floor. He gets the shot. And Darling with the rebound. Here's Corsini pushing the floor, goes up and gets the layup. Meets a double team, sends it out to Perez, who misses everything, but White able to get the rebound and eventually ends up with the bucket.
Saylor going to take it all by himself with no problem.
When all was said and done, 4 different players would end the night in double figures as the Scarlet Hawks took it to the King Philip Warriors. Milford gets back to 500 on the season as they win this game by a final score of 79-46. The boys will have 2 more home games before the new year, and Milford TV will have coverage of both. That includes a December 21st matchup with Westboro and a game on December 27th against New Bedford. We will also have girls basketball coverage on December 28th when the Lady Hawks welcome in neighboring rival Hopedale. Make sure you keep an eye out on Twitter for our live streaming coverage alerts and also to find out when new games have been added to our YouTube page. And now let's take a look at this week's upcoming events. Coming up on December 31st, the Ruth Ann Bleakney Senior Center invites you to join them for a New Year's party. The event kicks off at 10 a.m. and will feature appetizers prepared by Bobby DeVita and Company, and there will also be entertainment courtesy of the legendary DJ Ronnie Ozier. Senior Center Director Sue Clark also promises a special surprise is set to take place during the party. The New Year's party is taking place on New Year's Eve, December 31st, at the Senior Center beginning at 10 a.m. For more information, head over to milfordmaseniorcenter.com. And coming up on January 5th, everyone in Milford is invited to a special grand opening event. Health Source, America's chiropractor, will be hosting a grand opening at their brand new facility located inside Milford Square Plaza. Health Source will be welcoming residents with food and prizes while giving everyone a chance to meet their team. The grand opening for Health Source, America's chiropractor, will take place on Saturday, January 5th at 138 South Main Street, Unit 14 from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Residents are encouraged to RSVP if they plan to attend. You can RSVP simply by calling 508-241-4877. That will just about wrap things up for this final edition of the year. As promised, we will leave you with some of the sights and sounds of the holiday season, courtesy of our good friends at Claflin Hill Symphony and the Greater Milford Community Chorus. The full performances of both of these groups should be available for viewing on Milford TV throughout the holiday week. From our Milford TV family to all of the families across the Milford community, we wish you all the happiest of holidays and a prosperous new year. We will talk to you again in 2019. So long, everybody.